Name is Megan Rafferty, and on behalf of Canadian Women in Sport, thank you for joining us. I'm always glad when people can come together from sport and physical activity and recreation to talk about how to make programs and activities better for girls. And I'm even more excited when it's my own province this time. So welcome. I'm looking forward to sharing some experiences and the latest research with you, and some practices for retaining girls in sport by applying a gender lens. So today we're on Zoom and we will be using a number of its key functions. At this time, you can stay muted unless you are speaking. There will be many opportunities for you to contribute and discuss ideas, but we'll ask that you stay muted in the meantime, and then everybody can hear really well. Like I said, it's an interactive session, so please do turn on your camera. It's not mandatory, but if you're comfortable, we'd invite you to. And if you do have any questions related to the content or some of the technical aspects we're going to use, just pop those in the chat feature, and either myself or Vanessa will address those as soon as we can. And we'll be using annotation and breakout rooms today in Zoom, and we'll go over those in further detail when it comes time. We will get started.
Hi, everyone. My name is Vanessa. I'm an employee of Canadian Women in Sport. I'm really, similarly to Megan, I'm really glad to be here today and have the opportunity to present to you this workshop. I was really lucky. I got to be involved in the development process. So as you know, the Government of Canada, committed to gender equity in all levels of sport by 2035. This workshop is part of a greater project that CPRA has taken on to increase the retention and participation of girls in recreational sport in Canada. And they are looking at this from a number of lenses that you see at the bottom of this slide here. So age and stage of life are the main considerations. So this workshop is part of a series that's now been moved to virtual. The idea initially was that we were going to be able to, meet everybody province to province, territory to territory, but hopefully that'll be able to take place again once things are a little bit safer. Towards the end of the workshop, you're going to be able to find out about some granting opportunities, both with CPRA and Canadian Women in Sport. So this workshop is going to touch on a number of the goals that you'll find in the Framework for Recreation. This is a document that was released in 2015 with the idea of increasing the meaningfulness and capacity of engagement in rec sport on an individual to community level. So we're going to be, touching on fostering active living through physical recreation, which meets, goal number 1, increasing inclusion and access to retention for the population that faces constraint to participation, number 2. And ensuring the provision of supportive physical and social environments that encourage participation in recreation and build strong and caring communities from value or goal 4. Lastly, we want to ensure the continued growth and sustainability of the recreational field, which meets goal number 5. So we're going to be touching on all 4 of those throughout this workshop. And hopefully you're going to take away a lot of really valuable information from this experience. So I will pass the mic back over to Megan, who's going to speak a little bit more about Canadian Women in Sport, as well as take you through some really fun activities to start.
Thanks, Vanessa. So Canadian Women in Sport is a national organization that's been around for almost 40 years. Their name has changed. You might have known us as Canadian Association for the Advancement of Women in Sport. And that change just happened in February 2020. So despite the name change, our mandate has stayed the same. Women in Sport is committed to advancing gender equity in the Canadian sports sector at the systems level through partnerships with national organizations such as CPRA, governments, and sector leaders. I'll play a video now that does a great job of explaining why Canadian Women in Sport does what it does.
On the field, in the pool, at the arena, wherever sport lives, the challenge is there to push the limits, to overcome obstacles, to be better than we were yesterday. That's the power of sport. But for girls, there are additional forces preventing them from playing. Our challenge is to keep girls in the game. Because girls who stay in sport become women who rise to a challenge, achieve their potential, and make the world a better place. Because when inclusion is not just a buzzword, we all benefit. At Canadian Women in Sport, we're leading the charge. We partner with organizations who share our goal because we know we are stronger when we work together. It's time to reimagine our approach to sport. Together, we will change the game, and we will keep girls playing until they become leaders in sport and beyond. Leaders who were once themselves those young girls. On the field, in the pool, and at the arena.
I love watching that video and it gets me all excited every single time. So you can find that video and other information and resources on the Canadian Women and Sport website. It is so full of quality research and reports. If you haven't already, I really encourage you to go take a look, womenandsport.ca. They're also active on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Women and Sport CA. So we're going to hop to our agenda. We'll have a welcome, and then we'll get into some definitions and some material through a mix of case studies and lots of engagement with the audience and some peer collaborations. We'll do some icebreakers to get us started, and I am going to do an activity before we get into that, as well as a land acknowledgement. So I'd like to acknowledge that we are gathered on ancestral lands on Treaty 1 territory. These heartlands are the heartland of the Métis people, and we acknowledge that our water is sourced from Shoal Lake 40 First Nation. We understand that Indigenous women and girls have been underserved in our industry, and throughout this workshop, we will continue to commit to doing a better job and working alongside our partners to improve their lives through recreation, physical activity, and sport. Now, before we get to know one another, in light of, I know all of us spending a lot of time in front of screens and, perhaps a little bit distracted and busy in these pandemic times, we're going to all turn off our videos for a moment and just share a minute doing a mindfulness practice. So I'd invite you to turn off your video, and I will too. And we'll just ground ourselves a little bit to prepare for the presentation. So you can gently close your eyes or have them half closed if that's more comfortable. Take a deep breath and let your shoulders relax down your back. Rest your feet flat on the floor. Take one more deep belly breath. We're going to start our grounding exercise with our feet. You can shift your mind to focus on the connection of your feet to the floor. Let them sink a little deeper and become a little heavier. We'll move up to our sit bones and your lower back. Feel the weight of them against your chair. Take another deep breath and let your back and shoulders sink down, allowing for more space between your ears and shoulders. We're going to take 3 more deep breaths, listening for the silence between my words, and just let go of the thoughts and busyness of your day. After your 3rd deep breath, I'll invite you to gently, slowly open your eyes and turn your video back on. Thank you for joining me with that moment of mindfulness. I hope you're a little more relaxed and focused to take in the rest of the presentation. All right. So our first icebreaker is going to be getting to know one another. I know that I think we have people from all over Manitoba, which is awesome. So we're going to rename ourselves and practice using that feature in Zoom. You're going to include your preferred pronouns and the community or city that you are from. So your name, your preferred pronouns, and your city. I'll give everybody a quick moment to do that. Awesome, I'm seeing a few of them come in. If you're on a laptop, you can right click on your little video screen or in the participant under the participant tab, you'll see a drop down menu and the 4th option is rename. As you're working on that, we can pop into our first poll. It is anonymous, but I'd like you to think about who inspired you to be physically active or play sports growing up. Was it a family member, a professional athlete, or an educator perhaps? Or this one might not be applicable for you. So far, family member is really in the lead. And we have just about, yep, there we go, all the votes. Okay, so I have presented this presentation before, and it has pretty consistently been that the majority was inspired by a family member, which is really a great check-in for us. I think, you know, we probably are surrounded by close friends and family. And I don't think we always think about the chance we have to inspire those around us. So that's very cool. We're going to jump right into another anonymous poll. And you're going to reflect on what motivates you to work in the recreation and physical activity sector. So is it the community you serve, your team around you? Is it more about the positive impact sport and physical activity has had in your life?
Okay, we have almost everyone's vote. I'll leave it up for 3 more seconds.
Awesome. So by a landslide again, the positive impact that sport and physical activity had in our own lives. A close second is the community I serve, which is so great to hear. And it, reminds me that Manitoba is lucky to have so many of you in the roles that you're in across our province. Awesome. Thanks, Vanessa. So we're going to try out another feature of Zoom now. And Vanessa is going to pop everybody into a breakout room, and you're going to have an opportunity to introduce yourself and share what you hope to get out of the session today. So we'll just start a little bit of focused thoughts on what you're looking for, and share that with your group in order to allow for a little bit of networking. We always want to make sure that that plays a role in these presentations. So you'll have about 4 minutes, and we'll give you a little warning. If you've never been in a breakout room, we'll give you a little warning that your time is almost up, and then you can come on back. Thanks, Vanessa.
So Erin, I didn't put you in a breakout room. I wasn't sure if you wanted to be in one.
No, that's great. I'm quite happy to just hang out here.
Erin, Megan,
Hi, Megan.
Erin.
Nice to meet you.
Hi, good to meet you too.
So regarding that message with the error from Eventbrite,
Yeah.
There's not really anything I can do on that end, on our end, just because I read what it said, and it had to do with the email they used to register.
Yeah. So for future workshops, I think we'll just have to, I think in the confirmation email, we just send them the direct link to Zoom. I know even in the email that you sent to the staff, it was another registration link for Zoom.
Yeah, so that's just the sort of preventative measure, so that we have a link that we at least have their email and name if they come in and they're not someone who we have on registration. But that's it. It just asks for name and email, and then they get the direct link, but there's no login after that.
Yeah. Okay. We'll just test out a few different ways maybe for next time, just so that everybody who wants to be in is in. Great work, Megan. Thank you for doing the intros and setting the stage. It's going to be a good session.
Awesome. Thank you. I'm glad you're happy.
I don't know if Vanessa told you, so I'm at CPRA.
Cool.
We're the partner on this. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. I didn't know, obviously, the face and name, but I knew that you guys were the partner, and yeah, that's great. So you're right in Ottawa.
I'm in Ottawa. Yeah, we just moved from Toronto to Ottawa in the middle of the summer.
Oh,
Most feels
wow.
new, but somehow we're at the end of October and it's now months and months away.
Yeah.
Yeah, and MJ Akande just joined us. She's one of our partners from Recreations Manitoba or Rec Connections Manitoba.
Okay, her
So
name
she-
is very familiar to me.
Yeah, you've probably seen lots. She's the head of communications there at Rec Connection, so you've probably seen lots
Okay.
come in and out from her.
Yeah.
So she's on. I think she must be in a breakout right now.
Yes.
But yeah, so the two of us are on. I'm going to
Awesome.
silently work away in the background here, but if there's anything, Vanessa, flag me or email or whatever.
Great.
You can probably hear my partner. He's on a call here in the background. So we're trying to coordinate Zoom calls in a tight living space.
I'm keeping my fingers crossed that nobody like walks down the sidewalk and that my dog has to announce, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, mine is currently asleep beside me, but he was on our call earlier with Vanessa and Terry, like bringing me toys up on the couch. I'm like, get out of here.
Yeah. The last presentation I did with CWS to my partner, because it was in the evening and he's a teacher, so he would normally be gone during the day. And so like now it's totally fine, but I'm like, so no internet, no streaming, no whatever. You need to like do all that before or after, but I need the whole internet to myself.
Yeah, exactly. It's a bit of a dance right now
Yeah.
with everybody working from home.
Yeah.
We're
Do you want to give them
Manitoba.
a 1-minute warning, Vanessa?
So it just went off right now.
Okay.
So I had set a 4-minute timer within the group, so people can come back anywhere between now and the next 60 seconds.
Okay, perfect.
Oh, and some people are already back. Hello.
Great.
Hi.
Hi.
Who's that?
This is Finn, and he's supposed to be having a nap. So if I go off the screen, it's because maybe I've tired him out with enough pencils off the table. He just throws them off.
Yes.
Okay.
Hi, Finn. How are you? Not sleepy. Hi.
He doesn't care. I put like 8 pencils beside us, and he's just lobbing them onto the floor.
Incredible.
While you guys
That's
were in
awesome.
your breakout rooms, we were just chatting about the joys of, all working from home and balancing things like, parenting and presentations and work commitments. So. We'll just wait a few more minutes for others to come back. It's great that everybody is enjoying their time getting to know each other better.
Everybody is back now.
Okay, thanks, Vanessa. So hopefully that was beneficial for you and you got to know somebody that perhaps you didn't know before you came on today. Let's dive into the workshop objectives. So retaining girls in sport, this is going to be a 90-minute workshop. We're going to go over some foundational concepts. And then my favorite part is always applying those in a practical sense so that coaches and sport leaders and recreation leaders are very well equipped to design programs that will enhance girls' engagement and extend their participation in recreation. So you're going to leave with an understanding of the unique barriers that girls face and an arsenal of tools to meet those physical, developmental, and social needs to girls in your programming. We will set the context by defining some key terms that we're going to use throughout the workshop. And we want to make sure that we're all on the same page with those definitions so that we can use them throughout. So equity and equality are fairly common terms, but they're often mistaken to be interchangeable. They are very similar, but it's important to understand the small difference. As an organization with the mission of advancing gender equity, Canadian Women in Sport is often clarifying the difference between these two terms. To give you a sport metaphor, equality focuses on creating the same starting line for everyone. So it gets everybody to that same point so that they can start together, where equity focuses on providing everyone with the full range of opportunities and benefits so that they can achieve a similar outcome, or more importantly, reach the same finish line. This difference, equity acknowledges and encourages us to address the many contributing factors that impact our starting line. And the best way I can highlight these two definitions is an example. I worked alongside a rec director who wanted to provide track time for a group of kids who live in the inner city Winnipeg, who didn't have access to track. And so we set up some track time. We got rented, and we got the university track team to coach, and we thought we were in business, ready to go. So our first week, we picked up the kids after school. We had arranged the busing, and we bused them over to the track. And this group of kids arrives, and sure enough, they are in, it was like November, they're in winter boots and jeans. And so in that moment, we thought we were doing the right thing, but it turned out that that was equality. We wanted those kids to have track time and track coaches, and we gave them that, just like everybody else got track time and track coaches. But what they really needed was equity. They needed running shoes, they needed shorts and t-shirts to be in the gym. It wasn't enough to just bus them and rent the track. So that was the difference that we quickly rectified on week 2. And that is a great way to highlight this difference between equality and equity. I want to clarify also that gender equity is the process of allocating resources, programs, and decision-making fairly so that men and women can, and any imbalances in the benefits available, so that people of including people of diverse genders. All right, moving on to intersectionality. So this is a relatively new term that people are less familiar with. We've chosen to include a complete definition, and we do really want to focus on this. So intersectionality considers the layers of an individual's identity and how that impacts how they move through the world. In the next section, you're going to see how the factors of someone's identity correlate to their likelihood of joining sport and then staying in sport. Intersectionality is a necessary lens that we have to consider in program planning at all levels, right from organization leads, sport administrators, and program deliverers. Another key term we want to go over, which I'm sure you have heard of, is long-term development. And we're actually going to try the annotation feature on this slide. So if you pop up into the top of your screen, and you'll see a drop-down box, and the annotation feature is there on the left, and you can choose your stamp. And I would like you to give a little check mark if you have heard of this before, or a star if you would like to know more, or if it is totally new to you, just pop a little question mark stamp on there. And you can do that as I'm describing it. So long-term development in sport and physical activity 3.0 is a very valuable resource that considers the Canadian sport experience across the lifespan from when they're born all the way until they exit. As you can see, it's multi-stage training. It includes competition, recreation, and this document touches on some of the barriers to girls and women, as well as some strategies to get into gender neutrality and considerations based on social differences. So I'm seeing some question marks and some check marks, so that's great.
So in the chat a couple of minutes ago, I uploaded a file that has a number of definitions for other key terms, really brief ones, but they're quite relevant to program design when it comes to sport recreation and gender equity. So those would include unconscious bias, diversity and inclusion, and then what Megan already spoke to, which is long-term development, intersectionality, and the difference between equity and equality. So feel free to download and reference that. If you're having any troubles accessing it, shoot me a message. Thanks.
Thanks, Vanessa. We're going to use that annotation feature again and answer this multiple choice question. So if you can annotate, I'd like you to mark your best guess to what percentage of Canadian girls are not participating in any kind of sport, recreation, or physical activity. I'll give you a few seconds to put in your best guess. Lots of guesses for 62. All right. Well, the correct answer is unfortunately 51%. So we're just over half of Canadian girls that aren't participating in valuable programs that you guys are leading in recreation across Manitoba. So we're going to get into these intersecting factors. So earlier this year, Canadian Women and Sport released the Rally Report. It's an annual review of Canadian sport, recreation, and physical activity landscape. While a major focus is girls' participation, it also covers women's representation in coaching and leadership positions. So you'll see that 62% of Canadian girls are not participating in some sport, recreation, or physical activity. There are other factors that either increase or decrease an individual's likelihood to participating in sport. An example, as many of us know, 1 in 3 girls in the 13 to 15 age range drop out of sport. However, if that girl has a disability or her family earns less than $50,000, those odds of dropping out are even greater. So this table shows us why we have to consider more than just program execution when looking at engaging girls in sport and recreation. While not all these factors are within our influence as leaders, what barriers can we take a look at to lessen or eliminate? We're going to do another question. So using the annotation again, can you answer what percentage of girls report that quality of programming was a barrier to their participation? You have 15%, 28%, 33%, or 43%.
You're all getting a hang of the annotate. That's really great.
Yeah. Okay, just a few more seconds. Thank you everyone for participating. The correct answer is 43%. So as you can see, nearly half of girls surveyed said that the program quality was a barrier to their participation and continuation in sport. On this slide, you can see that the various reasons for the quality of a program can be diminished. And these are really reasons that are fully within our control. You know, we see these pictures of that are picturing girls at a drop-in night at a community center, and the girls are wearing the boys' hand-me-down equipment. Or the girls are they're invited to come either late at night, early in the morning. And we can look really critically at these things and make some changes because they are within our control. We're going to continue our discussion on factors that impact girls' participation in sport, recreation, and physical activity. But before we jump into those factors, let's go over everything that's being missed when a girl drops out of sport prematurely. And these are things that I work with in some of my girl-specific programming that I do in the community. And it's so important, and I'm so glad to be sharing them with you today. So we know that girls who participate in recreation, sport, and physical activity have improved physical health, higher self-esteem, increased social competence, greater academic performance, stronger leadership abilities, more professional opportunities, and better visibility for the next generation of girls in sport. And I would even go so far as to say that many of you are in the roles that you're in today because you got to have many of these benefits from your participation. So as we know, girls experience these barriers at a number of junctures. These junctures are broken into 4 layers in this model. It's called a socio-ecological model. So it goes through the interpersonal, intrapersonal, environmental, and policy and societal. So there's a lot of content here to look at, but I'm just going to overview each realm quickly. So the intrapersonal is what a girl may think or feel that prevents her from participating in the activities that you guys provide. This can result from stereotypes, believing, for example, that activity is too rough for girls, or she'll be perceived as having a specific sexual preference if she likes that physical activity, or she doesn't want to be seen as disruptive by pointing out a barrier to her participation in sport. Then we'll move to the interpersonal. So that looks at close relationships that influence a girl's understanding of the role of sport. Does she have the emotional or economic support of her family to participate? And you guys probably see that a lot in the communities that you serve, to see, you know, who's coming out regularly and who's participating in these rec opportunities because of what their family is able to support. Then there's their environment sphere. It considers the different access points to sport, literally and figuratively. So are there programs available? Are they high quality? Are there other girls in the program? Are there other appropriate cultural measures in place? For example, for a Muslim girl to participate, is the right equipment? Are there female role models present in the coaching and program administrators? A great example I have for this one that I've seen is in Manitoba, we have a newcomer sport academy. So it's a recreational sport group that introduces new Canadian kids to a variety of sports in the calendar year. And so they do probably about 8 or 10, and it's a fantastic program. And similarly to my other example, you know, there's so many logistical things about getting kids ready to go to that community center or participate in that activity. And one of them was swimming. And I know that the leader had a lot to learn that first time about making sure that the girls had appropriate bikinis to wear and that had to be appropriate with their cultural beliefs, and they also had to be at a separate time at the swimming pool than the males who were also participating. So there's so many levels for us to think about. And I know you all have so much on your plates, and it's a million things to keep in your mind, but we just want to highlight the importance of all these different factors. I just want to touch lastly then on the policy related sphere. So that's the external structures that affect a community's access to quality programming. So is the program adequately funded? Is it held at a time that girls can attend? And are there an appropriate realm of streams for girls? So is there a recreational level there as well as a competitive? With these different spheres in mind, we can imagine that while one girl may have the support of her family, another one may not. And that's a difference that we can look at and keep in the back of our mind. As advocates for girls' participation in sport and recreation physical activity, we need to ask ourselves, what barriers exist to the programs that you offer? And what barriers can you mitigate? Keep intersectionality in mind and this model, because you can remember that not everyone's experience is the same. I know that's a lot of content, so while that's sinking in, we're going to move to a breakout annotation activity. So I'm going to pass it to Vanessa to launch the breakout rooms and Jamboard for this one. We're going to brainstorm some factors that you believe limit or enhance a girl's experience in recreation and what we can do to enhance that experience.
Great, so I've just added a link to the chat for a Jamboard. I'll pull it up for you right now, which was what I was trying to do a moment ago, but not at the right time. So I'll share my screen once again. So for anyone who hasn't used Jamboard before, it's part of the Google Suite. So so long as you click the link in the chat, this is what you should be able to see. And you're going to be put back in your breakout rooms in a moment, and each breakout room is numbered. And then you'll go using the slides at the top, you'll go to your slide. So if I was in breakout room 2, I would click once to the right. And then with your group, you can discuss the barriers and enhancers that you believe impact girls' participation in sport and recreation. When you decide you want to put something down on the slide, use the menu bar on the left, and you'll click the fourth one, which is, you'll see here, it says sticky note. So I'll click it here. I can choose whatever color I want my sticky note to be, I like it to be orange. And then I would put my response right here. Save, close out, and then I can move it around. If it's a barrier, I'll leave it on the left. If it's an enhancer, I will pop it on the right. And then Megan, we will have everybody share a couple of responses towards the end, maybe someone from each group or one group.
Yes, so if everybody can pick team captain, and when you come back, I will pick, I think we'll have time for 2 groups to report back on the barriers that you identified, as well as what you thought you could do to enhance that. So everybody be ready to share, and we'll pick a couple lucky winners.
Great, so I'll just relaunch the breakout rooms now. So there are, here, let me. All right, so a couple of you have been plopped into breakout room 5, and then we still have our, perfect. So they're opening now. Megan, how many minutes did you say? 6?
Yes, we'll give you 6 minutes and a little warning as well.
Great. All right, enjoy. I'm feeling a lot more relaxed with less content,
Yes,
not as pressed for time.
yes. And after delivering it yesterday, it just gives me a little bit more confidence on where to kind of paraphrase, and then the stuff like intersectionality and socio-ecological stuff that they wanted to highlight more, but yeah. Any other than what you sent me in the chat box, any other feedback you want? No? Okay. Thanks. It's so nice to present the same material again.
Hmm. Yeah, and I'm looking at all of the Jamboard slides and there's stickies in each one. Did you want to pop into a breakout room and just see how they're doing?
Yes, and I really liked yesterday how you prompted Megan on who's looked really full.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So sure, I can.
So I'll put you in breakout room 3 because they're there.
Okay.
Hey,
Can you back there? I didn't click on the Jamboree before, and it doesn't let me access the link once you're in there. Thank you.
Yep. Oh, are you not able to get back now?
Can you send me back? I actually had to leave to get back here to get the link, I think.
Okay. I'll move you to breakout room 5. There's only 2 people there. I just can't send you to the same one for whatever reason.
Oh, okay.
Did you get the prompt?
No.
They're closing in a minute.
Okay.
So
Yeah, I just, because you put the link in the main chat, once you go to your breakout room, you can only talk to those other, like in your own group.
right. Well, group 1 is good. Group 2 is a couple on either side. Group 5 is also done really well.
They're starting to come back now, so thank you. Everybody's slowly starting to come back from their groups. We saw lots of stickies, so I'm glad to see that was a helpful exercise. Looking forward to hearing from a few captains. All right, it looks like we're all back now. Yes, great. Okay, can I have the captain of group 5? I would love to hear what you put in the barriers and the ideas to enhance.
Hi, my name is MJ. So under the barriers, we put religious beliefs, money, facilities. We put money because a lot of people don't have the funds to be able to actually attend those events. Even if you put them on, it could be too far from their house. It could be they couldn't afford the specialized equipment required for those activities. Some people just want to have fun. So having sports that are too competitive sometimes puts girls off those sports. Friends and family, if they don't have friends and family that either play sports or live an active lifestyle, it could deter them, or they have family that believes more in other things, for example, academics or other forms of activity. And then scheduling. So balancing academics with a social life could also play a role in limiting girls' barrier to sports. For enhancers, we put having group sessions as opposed to individual sessions could encourage more people to live an active lifestyle. They don't stand out, and they also can learn from the collective group. Having a close family member who is active can also provide that sort of like leadership or role model type situation for them. They can look onto someone and can also reach out to someone that may have similar beliefs or lifestyles to them that they can ask questions. Having taster sessions, because we felt that even if the activities were free, some people may not actively participate because they don't know what it's like. So just being able to go test it for 10 minutes as opposed to committing to that sport or that activity, and then having close friends that are willing to do it with them will help to get more girls and women active.
Awesome. Thank you, MJ. That was a great job. You touched on a number of points that we're going to get into a little bit more, especially about that social piece for girls, having the friend and what that does with her social connections. So that was great. I'm also going to ask the captain of group 1 to share.
Sorry, before we get into that, I would love to just clarify with one of the barriers that was mentioned being cultural or religious beliefs, that when you're discussing that, it needs to be a little bit more nuanced in the fact that it's, it's not the religion itself, but how it's not necessarily being accommodated and how that can hold people back, or like a lack of cultural or religious humility among program leaders, and the awareness piece. Just because on its own, it sends a more negative message, or not an uninclusive an exclusive message. So just a lack of awareness among program leaders of religious beliefs.
Thank you, Vanessa. I should have explained better.
No, it's all good. We've done this before, and it's totally valid. You just have to like make sure that nobody leaves this thinking one thing and not the other.
Mm-hmm.
Justine, are you the Team 1 captain?
Yes, I am. Are you gonna, Vanessa, put that?
Yes, she will. Just give her one moment to pop over to that screen.
So for group 1, our barriers, we kind of focused on some of the stuff that was talked about in the previous survey and reasons why individuals didn't participate, or girls specifically didn't participate. So the negative body image, or the too much focus on, or not enough focus on girls, like in sport. It's not, again, not geared towards girls, so focusing more on the male participants. There is another, we had a big discussion about kind of a work-life balance, but also for women in particular, the life part is there's more components. So there's a lot more demand on a lot of women in the household that would be a barrier towards participation in any type of physical activity. And that could relate to time, also finances. They're spending their money on other things, so they're not spending their money on themselves. And then another big one is childcare. So making sure, especially in single parent households, ensuring the availability of childcare during the time of participation is definitely a huge barrier. There's not a whole bunch of daycares or any childcare available in the evenings or on weekends. So that's definitely a big thing. And then when we were talking about enhancers, kind of the female focused programming, so really kind of marketing and programming towards what females in your community are looking at or are interested in. So definitely needs assessments are huge there, just looking at your community and making sure that you know what they would like to participate in. The supportive family is a huge thing. If it isn't a single parent household, making sure that husbands or partners or whatever are supportive of those recreational opportunities. Definitely subsidies are huge enhancers, taking away that financial burden or limiting it for sure. The positive role models, I think we see a whole bunch of bloggers and things like that online now where they're kind of the super mom, right? Or the super female. So the positive role model, we can get it all done, but I think we also need to identify that not everyone's like that, and we need to put in those supports to help people achieve that kind of level of super. And I think that was, oh, and then just the facilities and community spaces. So making those conducive of, I really think and I think our group would agree, the family setting. The discussion was brought up about the hockey rinks that have a walking track around them, things like that, that encourage participation with parents as well as their children. So yeah, that's our group.
Yeah, great job, Justine and Group 1. I just had a phone call. We have a yoga class in our community, and I probably within the last 2 weeks, I had this phone call with this mom who was trying to figure out how to get into the class and balancing childcare and having to pre-register in these COVID times. And at one point she was so discouraged. She's like, you know what? I actually just think that a physical activity is just not for me, and I can't participate in these rec. And I was like, no, wait, we're gonna figure something out. But there are a lot of dynamics there to consider, and you guys did a great job of hitting on those. All right, we will move along to the reasons girls leave sport and recreation. Those were some great jam boards. You guys came up with a lot of barriers and enhancers. And again, like I said before, having to consider all of those, it can be overwhelming. And I know there's always so many things in the back of your minds as rec and physical activity leaders. There's so much to think about. But we are going to address the top 4 that lead girls in Canada to leave sport, so that maybe it doesn't feel quite so overwhelming to address all those pieces at once. So like you mentioned, I think group 1, the time commitment, competing time commitment, school, part-time work, you said the family piece, there's the financial barriers, and it's so important to always think about not just the registration initial upfront fee, but then the fees of whatever equipment they need to bring that day, the fee of getting the bus ride there. There's so many pieces in the financial that don't really stop once you pay the first, drop-in rate or registration rate or whatever that is. There is injuries to think about and keep in mind to make sure you're providing a safe sport environment, and girls losing enjoyment. So we are going to talk about how you guys as program leaders and rec administrators can address these barriers and have a positive impact on the girls in your communities. So we're going to look at these 4, the first one being consult. We are today surrounded with 22 people who all have an area of expertise that they can share with whoever may need that area enhanced in their programming. So you can take a look at your programs, see when girls are leaving, why girls are leaving, and then reach out and find somebody who is an expert in that area and have them be an engaged stakeholder. You want to build supportive environments. That happens through positive coaching and prioritizing social connections. I think we touched on it earlier and I said we're going to get into it more, but girls and women always report coming back to that rec opportunity or drop-in or physical activity because of the supportive relationships that they have there and that element of connection. I see it in all the realms of the work that I do, from sport to yoga in the community, and it's always about who they feel connected to when they're there. We want to be fostering fun with every interaction and activity. It's really important for girls and women that fun is a primary goal. And lastly, injury prevention. We're going to quickly touch on a few of the common injuries that sideline girls and equip your program deliverers to prevent them. As I said, in consulting, you have those external stakeholders, but you also have your staff, community, participants, and other organizations. I worked for some time in the disability community, and they had such a great focus on asking, and they taught me about the importance of asking the person with disability what we needed to do for them. We sit there and try to design all of these things, but we forget to ask the individual. And I think that asking your program participants that are girls and women, it will give you the best answers. You're going straight to the source. And then, when we know better, we do better. That's Maya Angelou's quote. And when we're equipped with that information, we can do a better job.
I'll also chime in to say that we at Canadian Women in Sport had a project that ran 3 years long, and it was about offering opportunities to participate in sport and physical activity for newcomer women and girls. And the number of sport organizations who had a tremendous amount of success by partnering with settlement agencies who were already connected to that community group and knew their needs, it was incredible. They were bypassing so many barriers that other sport orgs were experiencing, like recruitment, what Megan mentioned about having, the correct staffing, understanding, cultural humility, all of those pieces. So, there are people who are already out there doing the work and having the information, and it's about expanding your network and learning through others' experiences. Can go a really long way.
So moving on to that safe environment, when we are considering girls' key motivations to participation, creating a social and emotionally safe space for your participants must be a priority. A safe environment is not just the physical space and emergency procedures and COVID protocols right now. These three factors, with the physical environment, the social environment, and then the physical and mental health, are all interrelated. They all play their part, and without considering one of them, you can't achieve that holistic supportive program environment. So we're going to get into a little bit more about what that looks like by taking a look at what motivates girls to start that play and then also stay. So understanding your participants' motivations to be in the program is key to getting them to want to join. But then the other piece of that, as I'm sure you all know, is the retention in your program. You can see there's key distinction between what leads to positive outcomes for girls versus boys. For many boy participants, performance enhances their social position. For girl participants, social acceptance enhances their individual and group performance. So girls need to know that they're accepted and valued for who they are. And when they feel accepted, that girl has the security to try without fear of social repercussions. She has the confidence to make mistakes or fail, and then put in the effort that leads to improved performance and fuels even more effort. And all of this, it has social connections at the root of it. Managing group dynamics for all of these pieces is so important. I'll just give one real life example here. There's a program, a community program for girls who are wanting to train in a female only environment for long distance track. And what we know about boys is that racing against each other really fuels them, and racing to beat the other people on their team is a key motivator. But girls, we know that that isn't the case. So that program set up girls running to be a race against their time from last week, and or a time from when they last did that distance. And they didn't all start at the same time, so there was no defined person who came in first and who came in second and who ran further. And taking that aspect out of it really contributed to a team dynamic where we weren't against each other. We were actually all rooting for each other, and it was great. Very supportive environment for girls to participate in recreational running at that point. So in building the supportive environments, it goes beyond just the basics of the program. We can define an environment, a supportive environment, as being welcoming, emphasizing the value of safe sport and recreation, prioritizing social connections, like we said before, that exposure to role models, and leading to the empowerment of girls in and outside of the sport. It's important to acknowledge that in the same way, a girl's sport and physical activity experience can be greatly influenced at the different socio-ecological levels of her life. Everyone has a role to play, from organization leads right down to program deliverers. I want you to reflect on your staff culture and consider where you guys are meeting the mark in that supportive environment, or maybe where you can shift some of your focus and resources. I want to go into a little bit more of that role model. We've briefly touched on it a couple of times. I'm going to go back to that newcomer physical activity group that I spoke about before. And they, like I said, they do a great job of introducing different activities, you know, in a Canadian setting to these newcomer kids. But what they do that is so impressive to me is that they start mentoring their teenagers and older participants to becoming leaders for the group. So these young girls who are starting to participate can actually look and see somebody who's 16 and 17 who is participating and leading them, and then they can truly see themselves in that position and then staying in that sport for their teenage years, or that activity for their teenage years. So it's so like I just love to see that happening, and I see the retention of girls as a result of that. So supportive environments can't exist without those visible role models I talked about. We need champions of gender equity. And then we can reap the full benefits of role models when they consciously practice those really healthy habits and positive attitudes that the program participants can learn from. Representation is necessary, so all girls have a role model they can look up to. We're going to do an annotation activity to take a look at how to include and leverage role models in creating a safe and empowering environment. So you can put a stamp next to the suggestion on this slide that you think is the most impactful or that you're the most excited to try. So pop your annotations on again, pick whatever stamp you would like, and let us know which one is the most impactful for you or that you're the most excited to try.
I particularly like the first one for recognizing the role models that they have in their life, because you're kind of putting it on the participants to say like, okay, well, who is a positive role model? And then they have to also identify what those like positive actions are. That one I've always had a lot of really fruitful conversations and discussions with teams and groups.
I love that there is a stamp beside just all 4 of them, which means that recreation in Manitoba is in great shape to try out all 4 of these. So that's awesome. There are a bunch of other suggestions like these that you can find in that resource we mentioned before, and we'll link to it again after the workshop. It's called She Belongs, and it's on building a social connection for lasting participation in sport. Okay, we're gonna go back to our breakout rooms, and you're going to have the opportunity to discuss this scenario. The slide doesn't carry over to your breakout room, so I'm gonna read it in full. So you're the program deliverer, and towards the end of your program, you notice the attendance of girls in your co-ed sport recreation program drastically decreased. When you asked one of the participants why fewer girls were attending, she explained that boys don't pass, and a number of the girls were bullying each other at school. The majority of the girls register again for the upcoming program cycle. How do you plan for the next program cycle knowing this? So in your breakout rooms, you're going to have 6 minutes to discuss what the underlying issues are, who you would consult. Remember, we talked about that. Consult. Who are your stakeholders and your experts you could talk to? And then lastly, how you would track if this change has made a positive impact in the experience of the participants. So we want to look at the issues, get some expert advice, and then how you track the progress and changes. So we'll give you 6 minutes. You'll go back into your same groups. We'll give you a little warning, and I'm going to pick 2 different groups this time to report back. So have your team captain jot down some of your discussion. Oh, Vanessa is kindly putting the questions in the chat box.
Yep, the questions are in the chat box and the rooms are getting opened now.
How are we doing on timing, Vanessa?
Yeah, we're a bit tight. So I'm taking out, we only have 2 more. We have fostering fun and injury prevention. So I'm going to take out one of the scenarios and then that's it.
Okay.
I'll also wrap the I will wrap the groups right now a little bit earlier, like 2, they'll have 4-ish minutes.
Okay. I've never used Jamboard before.
Oh yeah, did you enjoy it?
New experience. Honestly, I think I totally screwed it up. Our group, our breakout, whatever breakout room I was put in, like there was no conversation. Nobody turned on mics or cameras. I didn't like, I think
Weird.
people didn't really know what to do. And then Jamboard, the link took me to slide 1. So I put a thought on slide 1, but obviously I wasn't part of group 1. So I think I screwed it up.
That's
I'm glad
okay.
everybody else was familiar.
Yeah, nobody messaged me or seemed to have a hard time. So
That's good.
it was like, and all of the Jamboards had content on them.
Yeah, which is great.
It is really nice too, because it's easy for managing the groups. So I don't have to be able to see or go into all of them.
Yeah.
Because I can just see like, okay, group 3 doesn't have anything on there. I'm going to check out them because all the other groups, are doing okay.
Yeah. I wonder if it's helpful the next time we do this, if you or the facilitator or me pop between groups, like we can leave and go back, enter and then leave breakouts, right?
I believe so. I know as a host you can. I'm not sure if you can as a co-host.
Oh, well, okay, but even as a host, if you could like pop in and out and just say chatting, because everybody, our room was literally silent. Like I don't.
Yeah, weird.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I will. What room is Megan in? Megan's in room 5. I'll pop into room 4 and see how it's going there.
This one I think is probably a little more clear because you have to talk about stuff, right? Oh, you're gone. Okay. How's it going?
Breakout room 4 is having a good chat.
Good.
Now the breakout rooms are
We have like 6 minutes left here, right?
yeah.
And we're going to go through evaluation and everything else.
It's gonna be tight.
And questions? Yeah, okay.
Mhm.
All right, I'm going back on mute.
Okay. Hi Megan. So we have 6-7 minutes left.
Yes.
So we're just gonna go for it.
Yes. So we already took out scenario 3 anyways.
Yeah, so we'll just no more scenarios.
Yes. Okay. Is everybody back?
Yep.
All right. I'm sure everybody had very valuable conversations, and just in the context of time, we're going to wrap up that scenario and move on to our last few pieces here. Fostering fun is very important for girls. When surveys, they noted that positive team and group dynamics, getting to put in effort and trying hard, were the biggest indicators of a fun experience. So reflect in your day-to-day about what this looks like in your groups and communities. Positive team dynamics are not only a want for girls, but a need. We need to be building those dynamics in addition to the reasons on the slide. They enhance girls' performance, address social pressures that lead girls to drop out, and prepare coaches to recognize and disrupt the signs when we're seeing girls disengage from sport. There are a lot of ways that we can work on those social connections, and adding that time to be able to connect one-on-one and in a group are so important, and they will be the difference for keeping girls in your programming. To be very effective, all of these values can be part of your organizational attitude, prioritizing those relationships over outcomes. Next, trying hard. Like most people, girls find satisfaction in giving their best effort. Referring back to those intrinsic motivators, girls have the highest expectations of themselves, and it is so important for them to be able to kind of bring their A game every time. When we get in the way of allowing them to try that new skill or activity, we really jeopardize their experience as well as their social standings. So we want to be equipping them with the fundamentals so they can build on those skills and into more complex skills, encouraging them while they're doing it, the goal setting and reframing as they're going along their progress. That leads us into positive coaching, and that's a big piece of what I'm asking in these last couple of slides. So positive coaching is not criticism and competition avoidance. Coaches show they care about their participants by listening to them and coaching with patience and encouragement. If we think about our most positive experiences with sport leaders and recreation leaders, it's absolutely those people who took the time to encourage us and really one-on-one be there for us when we needed them. We are going to quickly highlight injury prevention. We noted it was one of the key factors that was something that affected girls' participation. There are 3 different kinds of injuries. There are the mechanical injuries, the accidents, that would be the physical body that were the most common definition of injury that you're used to. Energetic injury, which is perhaps when you're overdoing that activity and then you're getting that repetition and endurance injury. And then there's psychosocial injuries where it's affecting them emotionally, that bullying, it's a result of the participant not being accepted or welcomed or given equal opportunity. So we we do have a toolbox of preventative measures. There is a Safe Sport e-module that you can take a look at and go through to enhance your skills in that area. Like I mentioned quickly before, there's the fundamental movements that need to be introduced so that when the more complex skills are introduced, that we're able to prevent some of that mechanical injury from happening. Looking at the risks of that energetic injury and engaging your stakeholders so that you're getting advice on how to prevent those endurance and repetition injuries. And then always keeping an eye on what's happening for social isolation and developing really positive team dynamics. We will wrap up now with a little bit of reflection. So when you think about all the stuff we just went through, which I know is a lot, can you identify in all of the barriers we talked about what you can change today in your everyday work and life? What do you have the power to control and change? Then can you recognize that society has a role, and the way we unconsciously perpetuate some of these barriers? We can look at advocating for equity in our programs, as well as take those steps that we brainstorm to keep girls in sport very intentionally. This work won't just happen by itself. It has to be right at the forefront of our minds. So I'm going to pop it over to Vanessa to take a overview of the CWS WISE Fund, as well as some CPRA information.
Yes, thank you so much, Megan. Thank you everybody for joining and participating today. I realize that we're right in the final minute right now, so I'll try and be brief. I just put the post-workshop evaluation in the chat and would really appreciate if you filled that out. We are diligent at looking at the feedback and implementing whatever you've experienced to make all of our offerings better in order for girls and young women to really be able to benefit from the opportunities that we get to speak to program leaders such as yourselves. So if you could please take the time to do that, that would be phenomenal. On the slide right now, you'll see that both Canadian Women in Sport and CPRA have funding available. So our WISE Fund is a micro grant of $2,500. The application window closes excuse me, Monday, November 9th. So it's right around the corner. These funds can be used towards advancing gender equity in sport, physical activity, recreation. And it just needs to be, very clearly outlined how these funds will improve that. Are you giving more girls access to play? Are you enabling women in the community to get training in order to lead programs? It's really very open-ended, and you can always reach out to me if you have any questions about the application process. Similarly, CPRA has their Gender Equity and Recreation Sport Community Grant Initiative. Grants are available for up to $15,000 to address the barriers to participation, and that application process is open until December 11th. So this link and our WISE Fund link will be available in a follow-up email that I will send out, which includes all the resources that were mentioned throughout this workshop. All right, you already have the feedback survey in the chat, and this is the last opportunity I'm going to take to thank you. This was a really active group of participants. We appreciated hearing about your experience and watching you engage with the content. Megan, thank you so much for sharing your experience and providing that Manitoba perspective. I know I personally learned a lot. And once again, CPRA and Sport Canada, it's been great to be able to develop this content alongside you and now have the opportunity to share it. So thank you.
Have a great afternoon, everybody. It's so snowy here, but I wish you a great day.
Phenomenal. Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Bye.